It can be difficult to realise today because there's no fanfare or no fuss to really kick up. But today, January 9th, 2024, is 10 years since the release of Invasion from Below, the 11th and final instalment in the Hero Factory series, and therefore it is also 10 years since Hero Factory was discontinued. 10 years on, obviously the community is fragmented massively. That was happening during Invasion from Below's release. Invasion from Below is something that I haven't really spoken about in any Hero series episode or any video that I've made, or even just in life. I consider it to be a very strange topic, and it sucks in a way because I'm such a massive Hero Factory fan and have been for ages. I could tell you pretty much everything there is to know about sets and lines up to Invasion from Below. But when it comes to that set in particular, I'm like, oh, I like the yellow one. I like the big beast. When Invasion from Below was out, I only had one set, and that was the Evo mech one. I can't even remember what it was called. And my brother had the Splitter Beast. That's the last set I would have bought from Hero Factory when it was out. At the moment, I still have the Evo and Stormer figures. I can't remember if the set came with a Stormer figure, or if I got that from somebody else. But that and Splitter Beast would have been the last Hero Factory sets to come into the house when the series was still being made. This video isn't going to be a retrospective on Invasion from Below. I can say a few comments about it, but the reason why I'm marking 10 years without Hero Factory is because I wanted to talk about what I personally and the channel have done in the 10 years since January 9th, 2014. I watched Invasion from Below the day it came out, the same as I did with every Hero Factory feature since Savage Planet. I remember being, firstly, unimpressed with the voices. I know now that there are a number of reasons why a lot of people weren't impressed with them and Invasion from Below as a whole. It turns out they weren't able to afford the voice actors back, which I find to be very strange because that happened in a very short window of time between Brain Attack and Invasion from Below. Invasion from Below also changed ideas and story drastically during development, which left it pretty directionless. The film also provided us with our third and final unanswered question. The first one is the location and nature of the Dark Maker, as they're known at the start of Brain Attack. The second is the fate of the workers and the myriad of brains currently under Hero Factory at the end of Brain Attack. And the third is the egg at the end of Invasion from Below. It felt pretty half-baked and different in general. It was a very valid direction for them to take because they had to reinvent the franchise. I just feel like there were a lot more misses than hits, and I have only rewatched Invasion from Below, I think 3 times over the last decade now, which is the least by far of any Hero Factory series. When it comes to possibly buying Invasion from Below sets now, that isn't something that I would ever be interested in doing, because I generally think that one of the main, if not the main contributing factor to Hero Factory ending is Invasion from Below. So I've always had a personal dislike of the series in particular. Every other Hero Factory set, line and movie is 10 out of 10. So when there's that little decline in quality and it's that noticeable, I can't service that. I can't sort of buy sets and get invested in that. So although they're by far the cheapest, I wouldn't look into buying up Invasion from Below now. But if we go through year by year from 2014 to now, what has changed for the Hero Series channel in particular, we can begin quite simply in 2014. At the time of the Hero Factory set being discontinued, there were 3 Hero Series. There were the 2 recorded in late 2012 and 1 recorded in late 2012 to early 2013. I would continue buying sets through 2013, and then when Invasion from Below came out, I would buy one from that as well. Through 2014, I would pretend that Invasion from Below never existed, and I would live essentially in disbelief that the series had been discontinued, and continue making Hero Series episodes. But the thing that was different about these ones was that I had intended for them to be stop motion, so they exist largely in picture form, which is why they were never uploaded. And because I took them all on the same SD card, it's hard to know when one episode ends and when one begins, so I can't exactly be sure how many of these Hero Series stop-motion adventures there actually were. I began adding elements of stop motion during Hero Series 3, which is why there are some pictures integrated into that. So it's around that time in the year after that I was recording these. The main advancement since Hero Factory ended was in 2015. I decided to, for the first time in a year and a half at that point, make another Hero Series feature, Hero Series 4, Part 1 and 2. Now, during 2014, gradually I'd come to take apart the Hero Factory figures for some reason, and it's something that I'm not proud of, but luckily they weren't in that state for long. But while they were, I got back into Hero Factory. So what Hero Series 4 was, essentially, were three original characters, one of which was the return of Insecticus and his two friends. They were the villains, they were characters that did not exist in Hero Factory that I've created myself, against Stormer, who had elements of being a mock, and they were the only existing characters in that series. It was more of a one-on-one or one-on-three series. It also continued the trend set by Hero Series 2 and 3 of being a movie and not having episodes. The reason given for why there were no actual Hero Factory characters in Hero Series 4 is that there was a big war between Hero Series 3 and 4, because there was a big gap between them. And apparently all of the heroes and villains have been destroyed, and the reason why Insecticus has a new bulky warlike appearance is because he and his friends were forced to use the armour from fellow villains to repair themselves or upgrade themselves. At the time it was an okay idea, and honestly, if it wasn't for the way it was shot, the story and the elements from other franchises that were in Hero Series 4, I might be happy with it. That was the main thing to come out of Hero Series 4, but one of the main takeaways was from the ending. It's alluded to massively that I intended to remake Hero Factory characters, and I would do that, but not for another 2 years. 2016 would go by without anything largely Hero Factory related happening in my personal life, or actually in the world. And it would be the summer of 2017 that I actually knuckle down and remake almost every Hero Factory figure. There are some figures like Witch Doctor, which I would end up buying again just because there were too many pieces and too many lost things. I would also rebuy Voltix and Bulk 4.0. But largely I remade so many, I'd say 2 in 3 Hero Factory sets, heroes and villains alike, that I had before Hero Series 4. And when all of the Hero Factory sets were together, and I was newly a teenager, I decided to make the Hero Series 5. The Hero Series 5 returned to episodes, and it had actual heroes and villains from the show again. I kept it going, and around the same time as when Hero Series 5 began to be recorded, I got access to YouTube, and I made the Hero Series official channel, and uploaded Hero Series 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is now privated, but we'll get to that. The Hero Series 5 was a massive, I believe, 8-episode arc, and it revolved around another original creation, which was the Selected, which was this company that used to make things for the heroes, and then turned evil, and then during the big war between Hero Series 3 and 4, they went offline. Insecticus, who is back, then goes and reactivates the Selected, and the whole series is essentially the Insecticus reactivating the Selected's time travel experiment so he can go back in time to Hero Series 1 with all his knowledge of the future and give the villains an advantage. Now that idea, it sounds okay. It varies from just hero versus villain massively. And it's also incredibly poorly explained in the final series. And a story like that, which should be very easy to carry, became a huge chore. So I don't know whether or not to be very impressed or very disappointed or annoyed or frustrated with what Hero Series 5 ended up being. Because Hero Series 5 now is only known for how much of a pain it was to get the final episode out. Essentially, there was a big gap in recording between, I think, episode 3 and 4 and the rest of the series while I was making Hero Series 5. And the last episode, which is when the Selected is first mentioned by name, obviously it had a lot of explaining to do. And I recorded that episode fully, and then I lost the footage. So I would go back to it not too long afterwards and re-record it fully. And in doing that, I had to re-record the explanation of what the Selected was, and it was terrible. That is the episode that I would end up editing together, and I would put out only the surviving footage of the original because I did have some saved in documents. I would put that and some audio narration on the channel, and then I would put together the new final episode that I'd filmed, and then I would find the old Hero Series 5 finale that I'd filmed, put that together, and the end result is whatever I ended up uploading to YouTube. It was not a pretty sight, and I'm not too enthused about it. Essentially, the Hero Series 4 and 5 are a dual series arc regarding an idea that I'd created that went wrong one way or another. It wasn't just some kid playing with Hero Factory figures anymore, and I didn't like how complex and weird and confusing and poorly explained it was. So I'd actually just say now that's why Hero Series 4 and 5 are privated at the moment. They may come back. I may just make some kind of retrospective and explain them a bit better. But yeah, at the moment that's where they're at. 2018 came by, and that is when the second half of the Hero Series 5 was recorded. During 2018 as well, there was a trip to Spain, which at the time was one of the bootleg capitals of the world. I found a massive ton of Hero Factory bootleg. The first time I'd seen Hero Factory sold in stores since the series was discontinued. So I go through that entire story in a few videos ago. The bootleg figures, they're so funny. So funny. Still my favourite highlight of any holiday ever, so go and see that if you want the details. But essentially, I bought 6 or so Hero Factory bootleg figures, and if they count as figures that I've bought, then there you go. But yeah, very, very funny. 2019, I'm not particularly sure there was anything Hero Factory or Hero Series related that happened in this year, and that's the same with 2020. It's actually late 2021 when I end up buying in box bulk versus vapor, which is something that I'd wanted since 2012, and it was fantastic. I was finally able to do that. It was $39.99. I still remember that. Earlier on that year as well, I also buy Nitro Blast. I never had Nitro Blast. That was one of the only figures, hero or villain, from Ordeal of Fire that I never had, and I ended up buying Nitro Blast, so there's that. At this time, at time of recording, Bulk vs. Vapor is the newest Hero Factory set I have bought. And 2023 just ended, and there were a lot of things to note there. Leading into 2023, there was the interview about the origins of Hero Factory, there was the prototype leak. So there was a little bit, a fair amount. Another thing that led me to delete Hero Series 4 is, why would I make a series about a huge fictional war that takes place with few survivors, when metaphorically that's what the Hero Factory community has been through in real life? The big war in question is the cancellation of the series, and the few survivors are the fans who are left a decade later. And that leads us up to the present day, when I'm making this video in 2024, which is nearly 12 years on from the Hero Series 1, which is unbelievable. There is something else that I actually want to put at the end here, just to tag on at the end, because the Hero Series 4, 5, and 6 are all privated. But what I want to go through now, quickly, is ways that I've attempted to continue the Hero Series. Actually, that's going to be a separate video. That will be a separate video. So there we are, 10 years since Hero Factory was discontinued. It doesn't look like on the horizons there will be any revival, the same way Bionicle got their treatment. I can actually say for the first time, just before I started rebuilding Hero Factory figures in the summer of 2017, I spoke to LEGO. It was through their customer service, but it wasn't on the LEGO website. I asked them, was there any chance of Hero Factory coming back, and they said if they could come up with a new concept or base for a new series, then maybe they would consider it. Obviously, they couldn't. That's all I've got to say.